you had a chance to at least meet and talk to each other. This is a, I guess it's a presentation by the Move to Amend Richmond, Virginia Working Group, which is a combination of different individuals from different backgrounds. And for those of y'all who don't know the Move to Amend movement, it's something to amend the Constitution to counter the Supreme Court decision in Citizens United. And we'll be hearing all sorts of stuff about that in a second from our guest speaker. Those who don't know me, my name is Scott Berger. I guess I'm still chairperson or former chair of the local Richmond Green Party. There is still a Virginia Green Party. It's very active in Northern Virginia and certain parts of Virginia. It hasn't been active in Richmond, I'm afraid. But I'm also the co-chair of the local Sierra Club group, and I'm trying to keep busy with that. And I've been staying busy with a couple of different issues I won't bore you with tonight, but they sort of feed into a lot of what Move to Amend is about, which is taking back democracy, open government, and trying to counter the corporatocracy, the ruling by the corporations on all our society and political lives. I'm going to go ahead and give a quick bio of our speaker tonight. Let's see. David Cobb is National Projects Director of Democracy Unlimited. He is a lawyer and political activist. David has sued corporate polluters, lobbied elected officials, run for political office himself, and has been arrested for nonviolent civil disobedience. He truly believes we must use all the tools in the toolbox to effect the systematic social change we so desperately need. David was born in San Leon, Texas, in Galveston, I believe, and worked as a laborer before going to college. He graduated from the University of Houston Law School in 1993 and maintained a successful private law practice in Houston for several years before devoting himself to full-time activism to achieve real democracy in the United States. In 2002, David ran for the Attorney General of Texas, pledging to use the office to revoke the charters of corporations that repeatedly violate health, safety, and environmental laws. He did not win the office, but the Green Party of Texas grew dramatically during his campaign from 4 local chapters to 26. In 2004, he ran for President of the United States on the Green Party ticket and successfully campaigned for the Ohio recount. I will add that he has been a member of the Board of Directors for the Green Institute, and he has served on the Sierra Club's National Corporate Accountability Committee. Real quick, I met David back in 2004, and I was impressed by what he was doing then. I was even more impressed by what he did in Ohio. For those who don't know about that, it's an incredible story right there. And it's just one of those great chances for me to meet one of my heroes, David Cobb, and I'm really happy to introduce him to you all tonight. I'd like to thank the Meeting House Quakers for having us tonight. I'd like to thank Alan and other people who helped organize this event, Andrew Miller. And without further ado, I'll give you David Cobb.
As our flip chart is being assembled, we will very quickly put this together just as a visual representation. I think this will work, but hopefully we'll get that up quickly enough. In the meantime, I'll just start off by saying, I like to say that I am a proud, I am a patriotic, and these days I am a pissed off American citizen. Good. I'm glad to get that response because I will also self-identify as a political progressive. And as a political progressive, I think we have made a mistake by allowing the Tea Party to claim some sort of monopoly on political anger.
Amen.
Because if you talk to a Tea Party supporter, just human to human, and I've done this repeatedly, if you talk to them, 9 out of 10 of them, maybe more, maybe 95 out of 100, will actually tell you this. They're angry about the fact that Wall Street America and the big bankers destroyed the economy, but what really got their goat, what really got them out there organizing protests and demonstrations was that the federal government rewarded them with $1 trillion of our tax money. Well, you know what? I'm angry about that too, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. And we as progressives make a mistake if we allow the Tea Party to be the only place where that anger is expressed. Because I'll go one further and say, as a progressive, I'm also angry that 25% of the children in this country go to bed hungry or undernourished. and I don't hear that anger expressed at Tea Party rallies. I'm angry that 1 in 6 American families are literally living below the poverty level. And I don't hear that anger expressed at Tea Party rallies. And frankly, I'm angry about the fact that the social, political, and economic institutions of our country are destroying the planet that we depend upon for life itself. And, as if that's not bad enough, they're creating a racist, sexist, and class-oppressive world order with the plunder. And you know what? I certainly don't hear that anger expressed at Tea Party rallies. And frankly, folks, the anger that I'm describing, the anger that so many of you clearly share with me, may I say with sincerity, that anger is a righteous anger. And I use that word very carefully. I know that we're in a Quaker meeting house, and frankly, just to let y'all know, I'm the grandson of a Baptist preacher. You can rest assured I know what the word righteous means. And I'm very clear that the anger I'm expressing is righteous anger. Because, let me be clear about this. If you get angry because you don't get your way, that's not righteous. Righteous anger can only come from your anger at injustice, oppression, or exploitation. But I'll go even deeper. If you get angry at injustice, oppression, and exploitation, and all you ever do is wallow in it and stew in it and think about how horrible it is, but you don't do anything, that's not righteous either. You see, righteous anger requires action. It requires that you act. And understanding it that way, can we acknowledge that righteous anger provoked the abolitionist movement in this country? They were angry at that unjust, depraved institution. It was righteous anger that gave those women at Seneca Falls the courage to come together and stand up against a patriarchy that was systematically oppressing them. It was righteous anger behind the civil rights movement, the trade union movement. Righteous anger is a good thing. And what I have discovered from my own lived experience, when you actually accept your righteous anger and let it provoke you into action, you can transform your anger into genuine joy. Because you will find yourself working with people who share your values and who genuinely believe and know in their hearts that we can be better, that we can create something different. And in the process of creating that thing that will replace the injustice and oppression, you will discover the best parts of your humanity. And you will literally transform your anger into a completely different emotional state. It's an amazing phenomenon. So we should embrace righteous anger and recognize that we are righteous. And that's language that I think that Americans can appreciate and understand. And I'm also a sad American because I can remember a time in my life where I could say that I was proud and patriotic and I didn't need any other qualifier. And for me personally, that's when I was a little boy. When I was taught that I was from the United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. But more importantly, I was taught the United States of America stood for liberty and justice and equality. And I was so proud to be from that country. And not only that, I was taught that the United States of America was like some great shining light on the hill. And we were going to guarantee liberty and justice and equality to the entire world. I was so proud of that. I was so proud to be from that country. And I'm angry, and I'm sad, and I'm frustrated because I grew up and realized I had been lied to. But you know what? I don't want to say, that's a harsh way to say it, that I was lied to. Instead, let's say I grew up and realized that I had been subjected to a creation myth. And I think that's a better way to say it for two reasons. One, I think it's more accurate. And number two, because I actually have a face, I have a voice, I have a name for whom I most closely associate that creation myth. And for me personally, that voice, that name is Mrs. Armstrong. She was my 5th grade teacher. Are there any current, future, or former public teachers in this crowd? Please raise your hand. There always are. So now we get a round of applause for the hands that just went up. I always ask for that round of applause for public teachers because, number one, I don't think we give thanks to public teachers often enough. We certainly don't pay you enough money. But most importantly, I ask for that round of applause in honor of Mrs. Armstrong. You see, Mrs. Armstrong did not go to bed at night saying, I can't wait till these little children come into my classroom. I'll fill their minds full of lies and propaganda. No. Mrs. Armstrong was a public teacher. And like every public teacher I have ever met, she wanted to teach children to become productive members of society. For her, being a teacher was a calling. Sound familiar? That she was doing it because she really believed she wanted to, and she taught that creation myth because she believed it. And that creation myth worked on me, it worked on my classmates, and as I'm watching how so many of y'all are reacting to me right now, it worked on y'all because we want to believe it. You see, we want to live in liberty, justice, and equality. I'll do you one better. We deserve it. It's our birthright. And yes, American children want and deserve liberty, justice, and equality, but not because they're Americans. We want liberty, justice, and equality because we're human beings. And yes, American children want and deserve it, and you know what? So do Iraqi children, and Afghan children, and Vietnamese children, and Senegalese children, and Palestinian and Israeli children. You know the point I'm making? What we were taught as some sort of American exceptionalism about the values of liberty, justice, and equality, those are just human values. And if you actually take a look at virtually any society on earth, that's what human beings want and aspire to. And so if we really understand that, I believe that we will be able to get in touch with something even bigger than just an American movement and recognize that we are in the early stages at this point in planet Earth of a genuine worldwide democracy movement. And if you don't believe me, take a look at what's happening in North Africa or the Middle East or Latin America. Something amazing is happening, y'all. And guess what? The corporate media is not covering it. Shocker. That's all right, because you know what? We've got our own media now. A big shout out to the brother behind the camera. What's your name again?
David.
David behind the camera. I just want to very quickly, whoever's watching this right now, the only reason you're hearing this is because David decided not just to hate the corporate media, but to become the media. And it's going to be up to us to create new media, to create new institutions by which we talk to each other, because guess what? The corporate media lies.
Yes.
Right? They are part of the problem. We need to get over the idea if we can just get, quote, mainstream media to cover anything. Look, they're already covering what they want to cover. They are bamboozling us. They will either entertain us to death, they will distract us to death, but they will certainly not inform and educate us about what's really going on. We just have to accept that, right? And in accepting that, I want to go very clear and say that what we have to learn to do is to organize ourselves and each other and engage other Americans as Americans in normal, everyday, easy to understand language, and to do so in a way that will be persuasive. And I want to be clear then that if we're going to be persuasive, we need to understand something that I knew intuitively as a trial lawyer, and now scientists are proving beyond a shadow of a doubt, and that's this. If you want to be persuasive, facts don't matter so much. Man. You know, actually the first time I sort of said that out loud and really understood it, I thought, oh no, this is bad. Because like many of you, I've invested a lot of time and energy in learning facts. And there was this kind of idea that if we could just present facts cogently and lucidly, that everybody would see what we see and that change would happen. But then I came across the work of George Lakoff. Some of you may have heard of him, a cognitive scientist. And he has proven, actually, if you really want to move people, if you really want to educate people, if you really want to convince and persuade people, you have to understand that people, human beings, do not understand the world through the presentation of facts. Human beings, we understand the world through the stories we tell each other. And so, since I want to be persuasive, I'm going to tell a story. And I'm going to tell a story on how it came to be that large transnational corporations are not just exercising power. I'm going to tell a story on how it came to be that large transnational corporations are ruling us. As surely as masters once ruled their slaves, as surely as kings once ruled their subjects, unelected and unaccountable corporate CEOs are ruling us because they are making the fundamental public policy decisions that affect all our lives. They're deciding what your transportation choices will be. They've already decided what the energy policy of this country will be. Corporate CEOs have already decided what kind of health care you'll get, or for most of us, what we won't get, even if we actually need it. corporate CEOs decided whether to take this country into war. And we, the people, are left to choose between paper or plastic at the grocery store. We get to choose between Coke or Pepsi. You know, we can have 31 flavors of ice cream, 17 different types of toothpaste at any reasonably well-stocked department store, right? But I want to be clear. Let's just acknowledge that those kinds of consumer choices are not political power. There's something different there. I'm glad that there are consumer choices, but I never mistake a consumer choice with the exercise of political power, because that's something different. And as I'm telling this story, I will also ask you, honestly, to check yourself and me and see, as you're listening to this story, if this is a story that you think most Americans in this country, regardless of ideology, regardless of party affiliation, if we can learn to tell this story in a way that reaches across ideologies, across party labels, across races, across all different kinds of divides, see if we can't learn to tell this story that will really build a powerful movement. As I tell this story, I want to be very clear. I'm going to cover 4 very important concepts. The first concept is the word democracy. That word gets tossed around a lot in this country. So to make sure that we've got some common understanding, let me ask this question. From what language does the word democracy derive? It's from Greek. Very good. Let's break it down. Demos means
People.
the people. Kratia means rule or power. Literally, the word democracy, broken down, translated from the Attic Greek, means the people rule. Quick pop quiz. How many of you believe we, the people, are ruling in the United States? Don't be shy. Look around. At this Quaker meeting hall tonight in Richmond, Virginia, not a single hand is in the air. And my friends, that is a problem. I do this presentation all across the country. I did 150 of them last year. I'm on track to probably do closer to 200. Sometimes I do an afternoon presentation and an evening presentation. 2 presentations in one day. I ask that question everywhere I go, and almost nobody raises their hands. And you know what, folks? As much as that may be a problem, I'll tell you this. I think it's a good thing. It's not a good thing that we, the people, don't rule, but I think it's a good thing that people are not raising their hand to that question. I think it's a good thing that we are finally being courageous enough, being adult enough, being mature enough, truthful enough to acknowledge that we don't rule in this country. Notwithstanding Mrs. Armstrong, notwithstanding the creation myth that we thought we had, we do not live in the country that we thought we lived in. We do not live in the country that we want to live in. I don't say that in order to dissuade you. I say that with some clarity to say we have to come to an understanding. That's what colonized people have to do, to recognize that we're colonized, not so we can just wallow in it, but so that we can plan accordingly. And that will bring me to my second topic, and thank you, Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the Richmond Green Party. The second concept is sovereignty. My friends, if I just had the word the sovereign on the board, who or what would you think of? Quick, the sovereign. King. I bet almost every one of you thought the king when I said that word, right? That's because the word sovereignty means the authority to rule. And the reason that the word king pops into your head when I say the sovereign is because I know what story you've been told in this culture, right? And 500 years ago, those words were synonymous. The king was the sovereign was the king. Oh, and where, by the way, did the king claim his sovereignty or his authority to rule? God. You don't get more legitimate. I mean, that's a big deal. To really illustrate what I'm getting at here, we're going to do a quick little exercise together. In this exercise, I'll be the king.
Often said.
In this exercise, why do y'all think I might be the king? Because I'm telling the story. See, stories matter. So, as the king, I will now ask you to repeat after me. David Cobb is the king.
David Cobb is the king.
That went better than I thought. I'll try another one.
I can't believe all you guys did that.
I'll try another one then. This malcontent over here. And as king, David must be obeyed without question. That's better. That's better. Good. The point I'm making here, folks, is that as soon as you heard what I was asking you to say, all of you kind of chuckled at me. Did you notice that? I mean, like really, and you know why you laughed at the idea that I was the king and that you had to do whatever I said? Well, because it's funny. And not funny as in, oh, David has just made a very witty and droll comment. No, it wasn't that sophisticated. It was funny because I used what a comedian would call absurd humor. I said something so absurd that your only proper reaction could be to laugh at it. I mean, to say that I get to tell this fella how to live his life because who my parents are, or even better, that I get to say how all of society is going to be organized because of the divine right of kings, that is ridiculous. That's absurd. You should laugh at it. And 500 years ago, people just like you and you and you not only said it, but we believed it. Folks, I want to stop for a moment and really underscore that the question of sovereignty, of either who gets to make the rules, or better still, what the mechanics or the mechanism and the procedures by which a people answer that question, that might be one of the most important, fundamental, first principle kinds of questions that people ask for themselves. And you know, it's true, as Scott says, I'm a Green Party member, and I'm proud of that. I'm also proud to say that I've worked with progressive Democrats. I am proud to say that on issues where I have common ground, I've worked with Republicans and Libertarians, frankly, on civil liberties issues and the fight against the Patriot Act and the NDAA. Frequently it was Libertarians and Republicans that I was working more closely with. I'm proud of the coalition work I did on that. And frankly, I've worked in coalition with socialists and anarchists. And I tell you that not so you'll pat me on the head, but so that you'll appreciate what I mean when I say, in my 25 years of social change work, I've never had the privilege or the opportunity to work in coalition with a monarchist. And 500 years ago, y'all, that's all there were. And 500 years is the blink of an eye in human history. So when people tell me, oh, you can't amend the Constitution, it's too hard. When they say we can't end war as foreign policy because the powerful won't allow it, when they say we can't have single-payer health care as a fundamental human right because the corporations are too powerful, I think, have you not been paying attention? Throughout all of world history, throughout all of U.S. history, profound changes have been made when ordinary people are willing to cut their shoulders to the wheel and make the change. And now the text is going to get metaphysical on y'all, so hold on. You ready? We are all individually participating in creating our shared reality. Another way to say that is, if enough people think that something is true, if enough people act like it's true,
It's true.
it's true! That's the thing. So if it is true that we live in a racist, sexist, and class-oppressive society, and it is true, then my suggestion is we should start to think and act differently. Maybe we should start to think and act like it doesn't have to be this way. Maybe we should start to think and act like we are in a crisis. Maybe we should start to think and act like that the future of our planet and our children depend upon what we do. Because you know what? It does. It does. And we are in a crisis. We're in an ecological crisis. We're in a social justice crisis. We're in an economic crisis. We're in a series of crises, interlocking crises. And I say that not to freak anybody out, but just to have some clarity. But I also want to tell you this with some joy, and that is to remind you that in the Chinese language, the symbol for crisis is also the symbol for another word.
Opportunity.
Opportunity. We are in a crisis, but this crisis presents us with a kind of opportunity to solve the problems. And I really want to underscore that. And that will lead me to the next concept, which is legal personhood. My friends, please note that I did not write corporate personhood on the board, but legal personhood. That's because I want us to understand that legal personhood, in essence, means the ability to assert rights. And since we're talking about legal personhood, we're talking about the ability to assert rights under law. And, saying it that way, isn't it clear that the entire history of the United States has revolved around this struggle of who gets to be a legal person and who gets to assert rights under our political and legal system? This is not a technicality. This is lived experience of one of the most important political questions that any people have made for themselves, and we as Americans have a pretty shameful history of how that question was once answered in this country. Who gets to be a person? And, of course, all the great movements, though, in essence, in a very real way, revolve around this. So the question, corporate personhood is an idea or a meme, but really what we're talking about is, should corporations be able to claim that they can assert constitutional rights? That's the real issue. The last concept on the board is the corporation. And since that word is equally important, I will ask the same question. From what language does the word corporation derive? Latin. It's from Latin. Very good. Let's break that one down. Corpus means body. And now for extra credit, anybody know the suffix tion in Latin? It means the inherent state of, or to have or create. So literally the word corporation from Latin means to have or create body. And in this case, we mean literally physical body. That's because we're taught in law school. And by the way, are there any lawyers in the crowd besides me that would admit it? I saw several, and then this gentleman, he went like this. There you go, put it up there. So my sisters and brother at the bar, I saw those three hands go up. Do y'all remember what I remember, which is being taught in law school, that a corporation is a legal fiction? Yes, yes. You remember hearing that? A corporation is legal fiction? And is that how we operate under law? Right. So watch this. Even if you weren't subjected to law school, if you just heard the idea that a corporation is a legal fiction, raise your hand. For real. Even if you couldn't define it, just raise your hand if you've heard. So lots of other hands go up, right? So a corporation is a legal fiction. It's a legal fiction. Corporation is legal fiction. That begs the question, my friends, what does the word fiction mean? Not real. Not real. Made up. Here's the thing. I was taught in law school that a corporation doesn't actually exist in the physical world. But we will pretend like this group of people and the material and the resources that they represent and the contractual obligations and the cultural assumptions, and we'll pretend like this very complex, sophisticated, abstract idea, we'll pretend like it's one thing under law so that we can treat it a certain way under law. And remember, if enough people think that something is true, if enough people act like it's true, it's true. We can create a corporation because a corporation is a construct. It is constructed by people in order to do something. And the word corporation comes from Latin because the first corporations ever constructed by the genius of human creativity were created during the Roman Republic. Not, by the way, during the Roman Empire. And sometimes I wish we spent more time asking, what happens when a republic devolves into an empire? Because that might be an important conversation in the United States. Just saying. Maybe that'll come up in the discussion phase. But the thing is, the Romans created these constructs known as corporations for a reason. For example, y'all heard the phrase, all roads lead to Rome? Yeah, right? Here it is, 2,000 years later, we still say that. Check it out. That road system was built and operated not only by, but as a corporation. Likewise, the aqueduct system, that amazing bit of engineering that moved water all across the Italian peninsula without electricity. Quick parenthetical, one of the things that gives me such hope and optimism is the realization that human beings are incredibly clever. We can solve any problem that there is today. In fact, you can't name a problem that I can't tell you the solution for if you give me access to the internet in 15 minutes. That access to the internet is important, of course, because I'm not telling you I've got the solution to every problem. I do not. But I'm telling you that just by connecting with other human beings, I will find you the solution to every and any problem you name. The problem is that we don't control the political institutions that would allow us to implement these solutions. In a very real way, my friends, all of our problems today are political problems. If we had a functioning political dynamic, a functioning political will, we could solve every single problem that faces us today. But that aqueduct system that I talked about, the Roman aqueduct system, that bit of brilliant engineering, it was conceived of and built and operated as a corporation. Likewise, the first universities, the first hospitals, can you guess? Corporation, corporation. So, quick question, folks. What is a road system, a water system, a university, a hospital? What do they all have in common?
It serves
Everything I just mentioned serves the public good, Alan. See, the genius of the concept of a corporation is to take private money, material, and resources and put it to a public use, but to do so on a voluntary basis. I want to stop for a moment and really underscore, at its heart, as a concept, that's all really corporations are, whether they're for-profit or non-profit. The idea is mechanisms by which you take private money, material, resources, and if it's a non-profit, then you're saying, would you please give a gift, a charitable gift? Or if it's a for-profit, you say, would you please invest some money? I intend to be able to give you a return on your investment. But in both instances, it is voluntary. It's not coerced. It's not mandatory. In essence, that's the idea of the corporation. Seeing it that way, can y'all agree with me that the concept, the construct of a corporation, creating mechanisms to do this is a very good thing? David Cobb is not anti-corporation. The Move to Amend Coalition is not anti-corporation. In fact, put to the proper use, this is a very important and powerful and productive instrument. Of course, the problem is that the modern transnational corporation does not exactly operate that way, does it? That's because the modern transnational corporation, as we understand it, not the mom and pop, not even the mid-sized corporation, but the